So there's a lot of components that obviously need to be built out, implemented, so integrated into your day-to-day operations that they're the habitualized daily routine. Each component is not difficult on its own, but getting all those gears in place at the same time, where you've got a fully functioning gearbox, that can obviously be a pretty onerous mountain to climb in terms of implementation. You can certainly get each one of those gears in place. Other than tax planning, you're going to need outside help for that. But almost every gear we've been talking about, you can get each one of those gears in place on your own if you're willing to put in the extra time and due diligence. But to create the kind of basic business, healthy, functional business systems we've been talking about, in my experience, you're looking at anywhere from 18 to 36 months of your time to do that. But you will get each gear sorted out. That does not mean you're going to have a functioning gearbox. Because when you take a linear approach, meaning you focus on this gear, you get that done and in place. You move to the next one, you get that done and in place. And then the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one. Problem is, each one of these gears is a set of human behaviors. And those human behaviors only continue when they're spinning off of the next gear in the gearbox, or set of gears in the gearbox. So when you take a linear approach where you get this gear built out, and then this one, and then this one, and then this one, because they're not actually in a gearbox spinning off of each other until the gearbox is completed, you end up, by the time you get to the fourth or fifth gear, having to go back and get this one back in place because it sort of disappeared on you. And you go back to the seventh, eighth, ninth gear, and then you got to go back to the third one and get that back in place. When you take this linear approach of getting this gear in place and then this one and this one and then this one, you end up playing this endless game of whack-a-mole where eventually you got all the gears completed at some point, but they were never in a fully functional gearbox operating the way that it should. And in fact, that's how the industry that I work in used to work. I like to believe that I contributed considerably to changing that model. But it used to be that you hire a business consultant or analyst, and they'd come in for a few hours a month. They'd give you a to-do list of which gear to work on. They'd come back in the next month and they'd check on you to see the progress you made, give you a little bit of a rah-rah meeting, but it was up to you to get it implemented. What we found is that function doesn't work. Instead, you have to get all these gears in place, more like yeast rising in bread, not in a linear approach, but getting them all done at once and then putting the gearbox together, turning the gearbox on, and then making sure it's working properly. It doesn't really work to do it any way other than that, because you, again, just play an endless game of whack-a-mole, chasing gears and trying to get it all together. That's the process you're forced into when you're doing this in-house. So you've got a few options to pursue. One of them is, don't do any of this stuff. There's a price tag associated with that. If you're leaving $1 million, $2 million, $3 million a year on the table, well, your cost of not doing this stuff is the amount you're leaving on the table every year that's leaking out of your business that you could be paying yourself. So if there's $1 million of income per year that you could be generating to yourself if you were doing this stuff, but you choose not to do the stuff, well, that's cost you $1 million a year to do it that way. Your other option is to hire a team of executives to come in and help you with this stuff. It would have to be executives, and those cost a lot of money, more than what the average small and mid-sized business can afford, until they've navigated through a lot of those growth rings of your business's development. So this is a key element. It has to do with the most common mistake I see with regard to staffing and management in small and mid-sized businesses. And that is, we do not understand the difference between a manager and an executive. A manager is somebody who can drop into a pre-existing well-defined system, like we've been describing, train them into that well-sorted system, and then hold them accountable for how they're managing the performance of that system with their pay. Think of a McDonald's manager. You have a relatively low-cost employee that you bring in and train them into a system and then teach them how to manage that system. The key part is it has to be a pre-existing, well-sorted system that you bring them into. An executive is different. It's somebody, frankly, with a different level of education, experiences, probably aptitude, certainly a much higher pay scale. The single most common mistake I see in small and mid-sized company is that we bring somebody into a manager position at a manager level of pay, but we kick the chair out from under their success by forcing them to be executives. And if they had the capability of being an executive, they'd be working for somebody else for a whole lot more money because those guys are in demand. What I mean by that is we bring somebody in at a manager level of pay and a manager level of aptitude into a management position, but we do not have these systems and processes already implemented and sorted before they get here. So we hire them, we tell them the results that we want them to achieve for us, and do not provide them the systems and processes to manage and which to do that with. That's unfair to them, and their failure is, to be blunt, your failure, not theirs. So the single most common mistake I see in staffing and trying to resolve some of this stuff is we try and find a person to help us get this stuff done. We hire them, again, at a manager level, pay for a manager level position, give them the results we want, expect them to define their own system, and they just don't have the capability of doing that. So option number one, don't do anything that's going to cost you money. Option number two, hire improperly to try and close the gap, try and throw bodies at it, but that's the tail wagging the dog because you need the systems before you need the people in small and mid-sized companies. Option number three, take a do-it-yourself approach. That's, again, an 18 to 36 month timeline with potentially no end in sight of ever having a finished gearbox. Your other option is you're going to hire a firm or that specializes in implementing this stuff, specifically in small and mid-sized businesses. For years, decades, I built a team where we can come into your business and in a matter of 4 to 6 weeks, get all of these functions so fully integrated into your day-to-day operation that they're the new habitualized daily routine. By integrated into your operation, I mean not telling you what needs to get done or how to do it, actually putting bodies on the ground that are working extra operationally around your staff without being disruptive to your staff, building these functions out, braiding them into the day-to-day operations in a way that's not disruptive financially, logistically, worth the flow of work, etc., which again is mission critical in a small and mid-sized business. So if you want to utilize a firm like ours, the process that happens when it's well organized, step number one, you're going to give us a call. And we got to do a bit of a diagnostic phase. Follows roughly the same outline as a construction process. So the diagnostic phase is having somebody come in and identify what you want in your business, identify what you need in your business, because sometimes they're not the same thing. And then how do we marry together what you want and what you need into a functional dream version of your business and your vision for your business. Once everybody's on the same page with that, facing in the same direction, then you go to the next step, which if it was a construction project, it would be the site inspection and blueprinting and permitting phase, where we've got to come in and do a little bit of a deeper dive into exactly what gears you already have in place, which gears you're missing, because that's a unique combination of every business we go to. I often say we have this system that's well sorted out, but every business we go to has a unique lay of their land. So it's sort of like every business we go to has a unique set of tangles in their hair. We're still going to run the same comb through it because that comb works. It's well vetted through 100 years of successful businesses in this country. I believe in keeping things simple. If you see somebody doing the same thing you do over there, but they're making a whole lot more money at it, don't reinvent the wheel, just do what they're doing. Well, we happen to know what they're doing, and there are all these things we've been discussing for the last few hours. So step number 1, do a diagnostic, figure out what you want, figure out what you need, how do we marry those together, get on the same page with that, and then do a little bit deeper dive into some of the unique tangles that you have in your hair that we have to work through, and use that to determine a specific scope of work. Take a look at the cash flows to figure out how we can fund the improvements in a way that aren't going to hurt the financial integrity of your enterprise. Believe it or not, the money is always the easiest part of these projects. You being willing to make the changes and upgrades is sometimes the harder part. The money takes care of itself. We always find a way to get it done. Our philosophy with the money component, if you want to utilize us to get some of this stuff in place, is if you're going to put your baby on the operating table and we're going to do surgery, we promise we won't walk away in the middle of the surgery because of money, as long as you're willing to work with us. There's always a way to get it done as long as you're willing to work with us. Half the projects I do are turnaround projects where I'm at a business on a Wednesday and they can't cover payroll this Friday, much less pay us. We get the company turned around, functioning the way it should be, and figure out how we're going to get ourselves paid and get some of these stuff in place. It just has to do with proper planning and organization on the project. Once we've identified what needs done and why and how we're going to get it done in your business, then is the implementation phase, where we're just there for a number of weeks, again, working around your staff in a way that's not disruptive to your staff to get this stuff implemented. Implementation is key. Knowing what to do is a small portion of it. Getting it done is the larger portion. You know that expression where they say knowledge is half the battle? Knowledge is 5% of the battle in this case. Getting it fully implemented and integrated into your day-to-day operation to the point of habitualization, that's the work that needs to be done. And it's typically much easier to do that if you bring in some outside resources to help with that. Once everything's fully implemented and integrated into your business, then we go through the process of just monthly checking in on you after the project's done to make sure everything's working the way that it should. For usually a 12-month period, and then after that, checking up on you yearly just to make sure you're off to the races and everything's working the way that it's supposed to. So there are resources available to you to get this stuff implemented in your business. There's more than one way to skin a cat. Don't let the volume of work intimidate you that needs to be done. But also don't underestimate the volume of work that needs to be done in most instances to make this stuff work. The key thing is focusing on the result. The result is monetizing your business much more effectively with a better quality of life while you do it. Hope this training was useful for you. If you got any questions, reach out. We'd be happy to have a conversation with you.